Hello and welcome to Ski Lodge. My family and I are on a mission to explore and document 100 different Colorado communities, and this month we went to Beulah. In today's video, I'll explain Beulah's history and geography, as well as give you first-hand advice on what we found and what to expect if you go there. Let's get started. Beulah Valley was initially inhabited by the Ute Indians and occasionally other tribes as well. It was also under both Spanish and French rule until becoming American with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. In 1806, Zebulon Pike and his team became the first Americans to visit the region, passing by on the Arkansas River 20 miles north. In 1822, the Santa Fe Trail brought the first traffic into Colorado, primarily trappers, traders, and explorers. One of these men was Robert Fisher, and he became the first to enter Beulah Valley in 1834. The valley is located on the eastern face of the Wet Mountains with lush landscape and a large wildlife population. He named it Fisher's Hole after spending the summer there. A few years later, Mexican outlaw Juan Mace used Fisher's Hole as a hideout. He had great success there for two reasons. The valley was in a gray zone being claimed by both Mexico and America, and it was difficult to access and easy to fortify from the inside. This made it nearly impenetrable from both a legal and physical standpoint, allowing Mace to live there until the mid-1850s. In 1861, the valley was used again, this time by Confederate soldiers, when a band of 600 came to Colorado in an effort to recruit and sway the territory's standpoint. They had read about Mace's Hole and chose it for its isolation and proximity to area forts. Union troops quickly learned of this, scouting their operations, then storming with a battalion days later. 44 Confederates were captured and jailed in Denver, but most disappeared into the woods. Those who escaped began terrorizing Colorado, attacking wagon trains and plundering food, supplies, and gold until local leader James Reynolds was executed in 1864. Following the Civil War, only 4 people remained in the valley, but within 5 years a small village called Mace's Hole had formed. In 1876, the town was renamed when Reverend Gaylord and several residents argued that being named after an outlaw didn't match the beauty of the landscape. Beulah was chosen over 3 other entries in a town vote. The following year, Beulah enjoyed national attention when a large petrified man was unearthed just east of town. Measuring 7'8" and estimated to weigh over 800 pounds, this mummy was showcased around the country as an early ancestor until a dispute about show earnings became public, and it was revealed the entire thing was a hoax masterminded by famous showman P.T. Barnum. The tour was abruptly canceled and the entire ordeal was quickly forgotten. The 1880s and 90s saw several mining attempts, but only marble was ever exported from the valley. A quarry 3 miles west of town supplied Colorado onyx, which was used in upscale building projects including the state capitol in Denver. By 1900, it was clear that Beulah was never going to boom. No significant mines opened and no trains ever reached town, so it remained a quiet ranching community. Temperatures in Beulah averaged 20 degrees cooler than Pueblo during the summer months, which led to an increase in tourism as cars rose in popularity. CF&I employees began taking day trips to the area, causing an unexpected increase in traffic. In response, 600 wooden acres were purchased and turned into the Pueblo Mountain Park, giving visitors a dedicated place to go. Beulah entered the 1940s with an economy split between ranching and recreation. In the long run, this has protected the town from numerous events including wars, the shift from coal to gas, the closing of the steel mill, and even recessions. The population has hardly changed, staying between 500 and 1,000 residents for decades, despite Colorado's massive population growth. Beulah remains unincorporated to this day, with no changes expected in the future. Beulah is located 20 miles southwest of Pueblo in a small valley on the eastern face of the Wet Mountains in Pueblo County. It sits at an elevation of 6,400 and has a population of just over 500. It is accessed using Colorado 78 along with the few county roads that connect it to the surrounding area. The town itself is rectangular in shape, sitting at the western edge of the valley. There is no grid system and several streets remain unpaved, often seen disappearing into the nearby woods towards rural properties. 4 different creeks drain into Beulah Valley, converging to form the St. Charles River, which then flows east into the Pueblo area. The surrounding landscape comprises of wooded mountains with various trees, bushes, peaks, and ridges. Pyramid-shaped Mount Signal is the town's most iconic natural feature, marking the entrance to Beulah and visible from miles away. Pueblo Mountain Park is located on Colorado 78 at the very southern edge of the valley. This road then continues west into San Isabel National Forest, ending at Colorado 165 between Lake Isabel and Bishop Castle. Beulah's weather is rather unique, exhibiting traits of both mountains and the High Plains Desert. As you approach the valley, the temperature often drops, making a typical July day reach the upper 70s with an overnight low in the 50s. The area experiences Colorado's annual monsoon season that brings weekly or even daily thunderstorms between June and August. Its location on the eastern face of the wet mountains means Beulah sees much more precipitation than the nearby plains. This, paired with the protection of the mountains, makes the region quite lush. Fall and spring are usually comfortable with highs in the 50s, and the leaves begin changing the first half of October. Winter is cold with highs reaching the 30s and lows in the teens or single digits. Snow comes in bursts, usually sticking around all season. Though most days are comfortable and sunny, conditions can change fast. Beulah receives an average of 112 inches of snow, which is among the most of all Front Range communities. In fact, it's not uncommon to see snow falling on the wet mountains while the sun shines bright in nearby towns. The tree-covered hills around Beulah make wildfires a constant concern, as there have been 3 major fires in the area since 2005. Despite this, Beulah is often revered for its comfortable weather, with many claiming it has the best in the county. We made it from Pueblo in just over 20 minutes and parked at Beulah School. It was the first day of truly decent weather, and we enjoyed a comfortable temperature of 62 while there. None of us had phone service, but first impressions were still good, with great views of the mountains surrounding the valley and the farmland that took up most of it. We were at the very eastern edge of town and began walking west. We passed the Dotson Cabin, a museum and gift shop just recently moved to this new location. We approached, then turned left onto Grand Avenue, Beulah's main road, and began making our way into the heart of town. We were waved at by passing motorists and residents alike, all of whom seemed very friendly as they were out enjoying the weather too. We soon reached Beulah's central business district, focused around the general store and post office. This was definitely the busiest place in town, with traffic coming and going, and locals standing around socializing with each other. A food truck called Joseph's was open next door, so we ordered some food and ate in the shade before continuing. As we went west, we passed the old fire department and Baptist church. The next block had more businesses, including the Beulah Inn and Stompin' Grounds Cafe. We kept going, and the trees got thicker and the hills taller. The western edge of town gets increasingly wild as you approach the mountains. Grand curved down a hill to Central Avenue, and we turned right, crossing Middle Creek. Central curves east, taking us back towards town, and it felt like a true mountain road with lots of pine trees providing shade as it meandered into the distance. We also had fun looking at the houses as we passed by. Though nearly every house in Beulah is unique, there are truly some interesting ones on Central. We noticed that nearly every property had some type of old building still on it, whether it be an outhouse, garage, or an entire cottage, and we found it neat that these buildings were incorporated into modern use and aesthetic and not removed like would be the norm. We passed the pedestrian bridge, and the road opened back up to a paved 2-lane. We re-entered the open valley, leaving the trees behind, passing a few blocks of farmland, soon making it back to Beulah School, where we let the kids play before jumping in the car. We then drove to Pueblo Mountain Park, where we checked out the lodge and other amenities. The park itself was in good shape with plenty of trees and things to do, but getting around was confusing, and the playground we eventually found was so ancient we didn't let the kids use it. At this point, we were all getting sunburned and tired, so we packed up and made our way home. Overall, we found Beulah to be quite interesting, both in history and in person. We were caught by surprise at how exciting the valley's background was, and had a good time just wandering around looking at the area. I almost didn't make a video for Beulah as I was worried it was too small to justify the trip, but I'm glad we went as we had a better time than we usually do. It was comfortable, well-maintained, and most of the people we came across were exceptionally friendly. Beulah itself was actually bigger in size than I thought, and we were able to kill an entire afternoon just walking around and eating. But let's talk about the negatives and get the full picture. Though Beulah may be perfect for a once-in-a-while trip, you can't forget that it's a small rural town lacking actual things to do. Almost every inch of the valley is privately owned, and the locals are a tight-knit bunch suspicious of anyone who tries to get too familiar with it. In addition to this, Beulah lacks most amenities, but that's about it. As long as you're respectful and remain on public property, you'll likely fall in love with the atmosphere of Beulah and be constantly captivated by its charm. Taking these opinions and experiences into account, here's where we've ranked Beulah so far. We hope you enjoyed exploring Beulah with us, and that you'll join us next time when we visit another city in the Denver area, this one famous for being the location of the first Colorado gold claim all the way back in 1858. We'll see you next time in Inglewood.